I received a request a while back to make a video on my Ultraskate training, and I'm happy to do so. I did want to mention that this is just for pure entertainment purposes. This is not training advice or medical advice. Please don't use anything I say as a template for your own Ultraskate training. I will say this year is now my third time participating in an official Ultraskate, although I did do a unofficial one about 15 years ago, back when James Peters was organizing things on Paved Wave, and we kind of tried to tag on in Maryland to an event they were doing in the Pacific Northwest. And I had a couple friends join me locally, and that was good fun. But it wasn't the real thing, although in some ways it was harder than the real thing, and also, good memories. But this year I'm going to try to race all paddle, which will be an entirely different experience, I think, than push paddle, which push paddle gave me the most flexibility in propelling myself compared to not putting a foot down. But I'm approaching training in a similar way, and I thought I would share those ideas. First of all, for me, I like to have a goal and even multiple goals that I'd like to achieve when I do a race like Ultraskate. This year, my goal is both very simple and also profound, but it's to show up uninjured at the starting line for the race. And I'm not sure how likely that is. I think it's probably pretty unlikely at this point. I have been dealing with some chronic hip pain, and now I've got a shoulder tendinosis, and I don't think it's very likely that I'll show up fully healthy, and that's okay. I still hope to be there. Even if I can't participate, I'll go and see people and cheer them on. This is something that I've been looking forward to for a while, and I can't control necessarily the outcome. All I can control is the process. So I'm doing my best to take care of my body and show up as uninjured as possible. I also have some mileage goals. I tend to keep those to myself, partly because they don't mean anything to anybody else but you, and they tend to be rather arbitrary round numbers that really, I don't know, they're not particularly interesting beyond just giving you a target to shoot for, which might push you a little farther than you would otherwise. I find that the training is hard in the winter in general. It was hard the last 2 years. It's even harder this year because we've had locally a lot more snow than typical, more ice, more just frigid cold temperatures. It's made riding outside very unpleasant, at least for me, and it's been a real challenge, to be honest. I therefore have been doing a lot more training inside, and for me, I do best with some consistency in training. So I do better exercising every single day, even on days after long rides, just because taking a full day off and doing nothing, it's just hard on me psychologically, and I get a bit addicted to the buzz and the endorphins of exercise. And I do. I think my body recovers better when I actually do something every day. So that could be just a walk with the dog. I had a dog this year, and I didn't last winter, and he requires a lot of attention. In fact, you probably heard him in the background earlier. But I walk with him every single day. So whether that counts as training or not, who knows? He likes to stop and sniff, and he's not a power walker. So I've tried to add a little bit more usefulness to the walk aerobically by wearing a weighted backpack. I don't go overboard with that. I don't do it every time, and I certainly don't ride with that on the board because I'm uncoordinated enough without throwing a weight into the mix. Um, so I try to get some activity however I can in the course of the day. And to me, all of that adds up, and I don't get too bogged down on the specificity of the workout. In other words, I'm not riding a lot in the winter. I can't, and so I don't sweat that. Not the majority of my exercise sessions are not on the board, and I still think they do me some benefit. And frankly, as my shoulder is teaching me, I couldn't paddle every day anyway. I don't think my body holds up to the mileage. And so I would, even in good weather, probably take an every other day approach to riding, or at least with paddling. I do a lot of cross training, as I mentioned, mostly elliptical. I find that motion of getting the arms in the mix is more useful for me with paddling than if I was just on a trainer, for the bike, or Stairmaster, where I wouldn't have my arms in the mix quite as much, or a treadmill. I tried rowing briefly, but that was causing a lot of irritability with my hip. Back when it was more injured, and it scares me to try that again, frankly, because it was causing a lot of pain. But I think rowing would be good cross training, and I was swimming for a while and building up my mileage with that, and then my shoulders started flaring up, and so I've stopped the swimming. But I think that is excellent cross training if you have access to a pool. And so I would try to do one long ride a week. Not always successful at that, but trying to get on the board for 2 to 4 hours, I think is good for me. During the week, I might be able to sneak in. The mailman just came. Dogs bark. During the week, I might sneak in 1 or 2 more outside rides if I'm lucky. But lately, I mean, it's realistic. I may go 10 days without riding again outside, and I just have to roll with that. I don't do any speed work really. In the winter, I worry a little bit more about injury, like falling off the board. There's just a lot of debris on the trail, a lot of sweet gum, seed pods, a lot of things that could launch me. And my goal is to get through each ride without falling and not worry so much about my pace. I'm a lot slower on the board when I'm paddling compared to pushing or push paddle. You don't realize how even a few pushes here and there can really keep your speed up when you're doing push paddle. I would naturally gravitate to the most efficient way to move myself along. So I didn't realize, how slow I would be with all paddling until I started doing it every day, or, every time I ride. So that's been humbling. My speed is down this year. I don't feel real confident with the all paddle, but I wanted to push myself in a new way this year, and continue to stay on the board when my hip was really aggravating me enough that I just didn't feel like pushing was safe or a good idea. So one long ride a week, maybe I get out once or twice in addition to that for an hour ride. And then I try to do an hour of aerobic activity a day in some form of cross training. As I get, closer to the race, now we're a little over a month out, I might push that up to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. It's hard to do for me more than 2 hours of aerobic exercise a day, not because I couldn't handle it aerobically, but because it's just hard to fit everything else you need to do during the day into the day when you're occupying a good chunk of that with aerobic exercise. And I know I have the luxury of time that most people don't have to train. So even with that, more availability of time, I find the demands of everyday life kind of pull me away from overdoing the exercise. But I do try to get a minimum of an hour in every day, and usually up to 2 hours around this time before I kind of peak at that. And I spend a lot of time on recovery. So it takes me a little while to get going in the morning now between various injuries and just being slower to get the muscles and joints looser. I have a foam roller, I have a massage gun, I use them all the time. I've been trying to rehab my hip and now my shoulder at home and watching lots of YouTube videos, but also going to in office PT. And I found all of that very helpful, but also time consuming. And at some point, you just have to do as much as you can and then get along with the rest of your day. But as I get older, I find that recovery, attention to your muscle recovery, it's not no longer optional. So it becomes as important as the aerobic activity itself, and the aerobic exercise. That's the easy part. That's what you kind of do on autopilot. It's the you know teaching your body how to move more safely, and paying attention to some of those smaller stabilizer muscles that you didn't even know you had until you find out they're weak. That to me is the focus of a lot of my time now. And so I'm cognizant of where I may have some muscular weaknesses that I wasn't cognizant of before, and I'm trying to take things slow and really pay attention to what ails me and try to prevent it early on from becoming a bigger problem, even though I have not been particularly successful with that when it comes to my shoulder. I do some strength training, probably twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, if I'm not able to ride outside as much. I've never liked strength training. It's not my, it's not something I enjoy. I don't feel particularly capable with it, but I recognize its importance, and particularly as I'm reaching the age where I'm going to have a fair amount of muscle atrophy yearly, if I'm not doing some strength training, that motivates me, and I can see improvement in my paddling when I keep my strength up. But it's something that I do diligently, but I don't love it, and I'm not going to do any more of it than I feel like I have to. So I'm not someone that will spend hours at the gym lifting weights, but I'll do as efficient a circuit as I can in the gym and try to work out all of my body and do that at least a couple times a week. And then aside from strength training and some of the active recovery that I mentioned with the foam roller and the massage gun, I do try to get in the sauna. I feel like particularly coming from a northern climate, it's a little rough to jump right into the heat in Miami and have no preparation for that. And 2 years ago, the heat really affected me. Last year, not so much because it wasn't quite as hot. And it's jolting no matter what, coming from really cold weather to really warm weather. But I think at least the sauna feels good. I know it has some significant long-term health benefits if you stick with it regularly. So I'm primarily motivated to use the sauna for some of those long-term health benefits, but I do think it has additional benefits when you're training in the cold, because it just feels good to not be outside freezing, or to finish an outside workout and then go into the sauna. That's really kind of a nice feeling. But it's a way of extending some of that cardiovascular benefit without additional wear and tear on your joints and muscles, especially when you're hitting maybe a little bit higher mileage weeks, like in the last few weeks before the event. I'll probably taper the last couple weeks and not do any long rides after about 3 weeks out. But it's highly weather dependent. I'm not going to be able to ride all this week just because it's just too cold for me. And then I'm traveling this weekend, and I try to be really flexible with training. I think that's the only real way to approach something like this when you don't always have ideal weather. A summer event might be different. Maybe if I was training for something in the summer, I could do more specific work on the board and maybe some speed work and such. But at this point, it's just trying to show up, reasonably aerobically conditioned and as prepared as possible. So that's my training in a nutshell. If you had questions about it and wanted me to answer things more specifically, I'm happy to do that. If you have some tips that you'd like to share, I'm happy to hear those as well. At some point, I'll probably make a shorter video on why I love Miami Ultraskate, and another one on why I hate Miami Ultraskate, because I think that could be kind of fun. But I'll leave those for future videos. Hope you are doing better with your training than I am with mine. I'm struggling a bit with motivation between the weather and just it's just feeling hard this time of year, and with various injuries, it's been humbling for sure. So I'm hoping you're enjoying your time training more than I am. Hope to see some of you on the Homestead Miami Speedway track, and try to get out there and skate. Take care.